He's going to be a whiff punisher with those moves that move him forward and such, but he's also very obviously whiff punishable if he pulls the trigger too early, because then he's just sitting out there, he's a sitting duck. And that's going to naturally draw especially new players' attention to the idea and the perks of playing footsies.
I kind of liken him to a counter puncher. I kind of feel like Luke wants to make the opponent, like, let them hang themselves.
He's got this entire other version of play that he can unlock, and I'm sure in certain matchups, probably ones that he doesn't have the best time in, that will be a huge difference maker.
This is a polarizing character, so I want to be really careful with the statement, because I think he's going to end up either really high or fairly low on the tier list, not in the middle. His style is just too geared towards being really good or really bad. He's got the Fong disease that we've talked about before. And right now I have him at the top 15 range and potentially up as far as top 10. So John, we're recording here on your birthday, but you know what? I want to talk about myself because that's what I do. I've been playing a lot of Street Fighter V online. Shoutouts to the pros who are saying that Street Fighter V is actually better online than it is to play on offline PS4s, because it's actually true if you have a good enough connection. And I have a good enough connection to about 65% of the people out there. If you're wondering about the other 35%, well, I'm starting to get in really good shape, and you might wonder how that is applicable to Street Fighter V. It's because I get so pissed off at the people with the 35%ers of connections that kind of suck that I'm starting to do a lot of push-ups and other crap like that, and I'm actually getting in pretty darn good shape because playing Street Fighter V in lag is frustrating as hell. So.
This is an infomercial if I've ever heard one. I want to see you do it, man. We'll have like the Home Shopping Network and all of that. We'll have you presenting. We'll have you with some weird figures and stuff on there. Be like, this is how I got fit with Street Fighter V, y'all.
Get ripped with Street Fighter V in 30 days, kind of thing, and just put some torrents on in the background, do whatever and stuff like that. The frustration will make you work out. So,
and happy birthday, John.
Happy birthday, John.
Thank you, guys. I'm glad you got abs for my birthday or whatever.
I happen to have a gift for you. I know how you can get fit playing Street Fighter V. Just message me.
Oh man,
go.
The gift that keeps on giving. All right. So we got our last big gift, so to speak, from, I assume it's going to be our last big gift in way of DLC characters from Capcom into Street Fighter V. That is Luke. And so this week, it's all about Luke. We've been exploring him. All three of us have got him, been playing with him, trying to analyze what exactly is this character? Did they do a good job with him? I want to kind of zone in here and try to answer 5 particular questions about Luke, and then there's going to be the three of us giving our responses, our experiences. The first thing I want to ask you guys, what do you think is Luke's style and or styles? Because he's kind of a character that's a little different than we've seen from anyone else on the roster. He's the 45th character, if that's right, not counting 11. And so. Yeah, so I want, what is his style? Because when we first saw him, it looked like he was going to be this brawling rushdown character. I don't think he's so rushdown. But Steven, you are our guest. I will turn it to you first. How would you describe Luke's style?
Sure. So with Luke, I kind of liken him to a counter puncher. And I feel like something that we talked about earlier this week when we tried him out first was I kind of feel like Luke wants to make the opponent, like, let them hang themselves. And that's something that you see commonly in Street Fighter V when you have an opponent that's cornered, right? You kind of, you ease off a little bit, you give them a little bit of space to where if they try to jump out, you can anti-air, and you kind of just let them whiff in the wind there and you punish them for it, right? It's not so much going straight into their grill kind of thing. It's like you ease off a little bit, you kind of let them make a mistake, and then you punish them for it. And I kind of feel like that's what Luke is, but just everywhere on screen, right? He kind of just stays just outside of your range, and he's at a bit of a deceptive range where it's like, well, a lot of his normal attacks move him forward. And it's like, okay, well, you think that you're safe, but you're kind of not, right? Like he has to find a very particular space, and he wants you there. Now, the inclination for fighting Luke is you want to stay outside of that range, right? So you try to stay further away, but then he has stuff to force you to come back in his fireballs, right? And it's like, well, if you give him too much space, he can pressure you with fireballs with his flash knuckle, or is it the flash knuckle that's the projectile, or is that his uppercut?
No, that's Sand Blaster. Better called Pocket Sand, yeah.
Pocket Sand, yeah. So you can use that to force the opponent to come back in, or he can just start powering up with V-Skill. And so it's like, well, you don't want to give him too much space, but you want to give him space because you don't want to be in that terrible position, right? And that's kind of the way that I see this character. He wants to hang outside of range and kind of let you make mistakes, and when you do, he can hit you hard for it too, which is he's got some tools, man, and he's got an interesting play style for sure.
It's like he comes at it both in footsies and in the zoning arena. It's like he can do sort of both of those things, but in both of them, the idea is the same. He wants to goad you into making a misstep. He's usually not the first one that wants to, he doesn't want to initiate the attack all the time. He wants you to get into a space that you're not comfortable in, open up yourself, whether that be with a whiffed normal that he can then use his forward moving normals to get you and whiff punish, or to goad you into jumping when you shouldn't jump, and then he anti-airs you, right? But John, what do you feel about Luke's style? And how would you describe it?
I wanted to add just that I agree with what you guys are saying there, and that I think that Luke is not the person to attack up close, because his up close stuff, like, it's all about opening you up, but from a distance, when he's about mid-range or further out, he actually has extremely good zoning tools, surprisingly good zoning tools. His fireball is really good. His anti-airs are really strong. They are meant to knock people out of the air. His DP in particular is just phenomenal. So and then actually, I think the combination of his walk speed plus his normals that move him forward make him actually very maneuverable. He's got really nice mobility. I would actually compare him in a way to Bison, where his walk speed is definitely better than Bison's, but his move set is so good, he has no trouble moving around the screen and being where he wants to be. But it's not easy to tap into that. But yeah, he's got a really nice set of moves for him. Hey y'all, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you leave a like on it. If you enjoy the content we do on the channel, a like helps out so much. So please just punch the like button. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
The big part of this is the fact that we are seeing some foreshadowing, or we suppose we're seeing some foreshadowing of what Street Fighter 6's general sort of pace and flow is going to be. And if Luke is giving us an example of that, it's like a lot of the attention is focused directly on footsie and neutral play, because he's both he's going to be a whiff punisher with those moves that move him forward and such, but he's also very obviously whiff punishable if he pulls the trigger too early, because then he's just sitting out there, he's a sitting duck, and that's going to naturally draw especially new players' attention to the idea and the perks of playing footsies, what it is to whiff punish and such. I really like that, because if that's what we're teaching newer players, or even players that have been playing for a while but haven't really focused in on that, if you're giving people the foundations like that, that's what we want usually out of Street Fighter specifically, and the fighting style, different from, like, you know, the likes of Smash, Marvel, Mortal Kombat. It's like this calculated chess-like footsies match, and if this is something that we're going to see in Street Fighter 6, I think that looks good. There's a lot that could go wrong, but as a starting block, I like it. So yeah, Luke, his style, I think it's not really rush down. It's more of like a mid-range zoning and footsie, but like a something of an, I dare say, a reserved footsie. But I'm also hesitant on that, because I've seen some people playing him very not reserved and still getting some results. But
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like with Luke, like he's definitely meant to be a glimpse into the future of whatever the next, quote unquote Street Fighter project is. Obviously, we expect it to be Street Fighter 6. But it's weird, like playing him compared to playing the rest of the cast. Like, it feels like his tools, like he's slightly different than everybody else. Like it's weird. The adjustment you have to make to wrap your head around how to play him, like it just feels different than any character that I've played in Street Fighter V so far. And I've run the gamut of playing a lot of different characters in this game with different styles and difficulty levels and all of that. But like there's just something, it's weird. Like you make these weird adjustments for him that are very unique to him. And I do think that there's something there. I don't know what that is.
Can you give us an example of what maybe one of those adjustments might be?
I think it's mainly like in his neutral and stuff, right? Like, again, we talk about the normals that have to move forward, right? Like the way that you approach that feels different than everybody else. And other characters have normals that move you forward, sure. But like the fact that it's such a big part of his core neutral game.
He's baked around that aspect of it. Like you can't play him without factoring that in heavily. Like you have to factor those in. Like Gil is infamous for his crouching medium punch moves him really far forward. And Laura's standing medium kick used to be like one of those moves, and Idom was even spamming that in tournament and getting really far with it. Those moves are more shenanigan, kind of like, they're part of the character's game plan, but they're not a huge part of it. Luke, these moves are a huge part of it. You can't get by without knowing how to use these moves and use them really well.
Okay. All right, I want to jump onto our second topic here that I want to talk about is the his V system. His V system we've been hearing about quite a bit. It's very different in certain crucial ways than everybody else's. So we could talk a little bit about that, and but then also what combination of V skill and V trigger have you guys been using? Does he have a ridiculously broken V trigger or V system? Anything, any parts about it that are standing out? Because that's been an issue for a lot of characters in Street Fighter, especially when they first come out. I should say Street Fighter Five. What are you guys seeing with his V system? And I'll turn this one over to John.
I'm using V Skill 1 and V Trigger 1, and that's his Fireball and then Popeye arms, or setup and stuff. Or actually, no, V Trigger 2 is his Popeye arm setup, I should say. V Trigger 1's
Well,
the
V
Fireball.
skill 1 gives him the Popeye
there you
arms.
go. There you
Yeah.
go.
V
Getting
trigger 2
confused. Thank
enhances
you.
the flash knuckle, which also V skill 1 enhances too. So it can
Yeah,
get
it's
confusing.
gets
But yeah, you
confusing.
use V skill 1
It's a-
and V trigger 1.
Thank you. Yeah. So his fireballs are actually really good in V Trigger 1. They combo fully from a crouching medium kick at a lot of scenarios, not every scenario, but a lot of them. And just being able to push the opponent back and being like, hey, now I've got a normal, fireball and uppercut thing for you to deal with. It's nice. I mainly zone with Rose, so being able to zone with Luke is like, oh, this is legit. Like, you can zone in this game. Like, I can't believe it. So I'm pretty happy with him, with that combination. But I do think that in the long run, V Trigger 2, when people get down the execution for it, that is the other Popeye Arms one. He's going to be really damn good. I think that's going to be kind of the best way to go, because it's so much higher damage, but the combos are really tricky because you've got to cancel 2 of his flash knuckles into each other, or 3 or 4, depending on how many juggles and other stuff you're doing. There's a lot there.
So yeah, I've been doing the same V skill 1 and V trigger 1. It seems to be not only the most intuitive and easy to use of the triggers and the skills for that matter, but also I gotta say V skill 2 right now, it doesn't look. I see the idea behind it. It's kind of cool, but to give up Popeye arms and to get that where one, he doesn't necessarily want to be next to you all that often, and this is of course the counter, the throw counter. Like, you can just shimmy and get widely the same effect, maybe even more damage. So right now it's early, but I do not see any potential in V skill 2, especially compared to what you'd be giving up for V skill 1. But Steven, what are you playing, and what do you think of his V system so far?
Yeah, I was originally playing V Skill 1 and V Trigger 2. And then I found with V Trigger 2, there were some pretty big shortcomings, because once you activate that V Trigger, it's hard to make it safe. So, like, you can't, like, you need to use that for confirms, because, like, he can cancel the flash knuckles into each other, and so your instinct is like, oh, well, I try to go for a confirm, I do maybe medium punch flash knuckle and then cancel into the heavy one, because the heavy one is safe, right? But people quickly catch on to that and just interrupt you in between it. So you don't really have, like, you don't get the safe pressure that you would expect to get from canceling those things like that. Like, say, for example, like a G canceling rush punch into fireball, right? Like, you don't get that same concept there. It doesn't play out that way. I do think that in terms of the damage and stuff, V Trigger 2 is really good, and we might end up seeing that be a thing down the road. But right now, I've shifted back to V Trigger 1, and I actually really think that that V Trigger is damn good. It just, you get go ahead.
Yeah, it allows him to go into an even better zoning kind of game, and he can get to V trigger and then totally change things up, head to the other side of the screen from his opponent, and now they have to get through this minefield where he can just throw regular fireballs all day, and his V trigger is not going down. It only goes down if he uses the heavy punch plus heavy kick V trigger of fireball, or if he gets hit. So now all of a sudden this opponent's been playing this sort of mid-range game for this whole time. Now they've got to get all the way across the screen. And what I noticed in our mirror matches, Steven, is that and we would often go down to both of us being in this state and being on the other sides of the screen from each other. I think we'll see that a lot if Luke is as prominent as he looks like he might be. But if you jump and Luke has this V trigger, he can anti-air you with it. In fact, he can anti-air you with an EX fireball and go into his hardest hitting version
Yes.
of V trigger 1, and that's lopping off. I didn't look at the exact damage, but it's got to be like some 300 damage, just because you got impatient and jumped
Yes.
at any place on the screen, like from full screen away. So it's really powerful. And like I said, it doesn't go down until he uses it or you close that gap and hit him for it, which means he's got this entire other version of play that he can unlock. And I'm sure in certain matchups, probably ones that he doesn't have the best time in, that will be a huge difference maker against certain characters and in certain matchups, like I say. So I'm really liking that. And it, like I said, it feels more intuitive. It's like kind of that basic fireball uppercut with a little bit more pizzazz to it, but it's a very basic Street Fighter concept. I've really enjoyed playing the combination of V Skill 1, V Trigger 1, and yeah, that's where I've been for sure.
Yeah, it's also just like a damn near instant full screen punish and a full screen check. And it's like it was so funny because like I kind of look at that V trigger similar to Gil's Ice Tree, and that's how I wanted to use Ice Tree. But Ice Tree sucks, so it doesn't work that way. But when you go to Luke and like so something like standing medium kick, which is one of his best like pokes that's actually stationary, right? Like one that's a good check in neutral. That can be canceled into the V trigger 1, the multi hitting fireball, and that's a great check. That's a great confirm. Like, and I believe it's a true block string. So it's like that's how I wanted to use Ice Tree, but Ice Tree is so slow that you try to do that and you just get interrupted. And it's like, well,
The startup of it is so fast. Like you're doing regular fireballs, and then you hit that V trigger fireball, and it's so much quicker.
Yes.
It's a whole other thing, and you can really steal hits with it. Do we feel like it's OP at all?
I don't think it's
Not at
OP.
all.
Not at all.
Zoning in this game, you have to have. Okay, so let me clarify on this, because I played the most zoning characters here among our staff. If your zoning is not OP in this game, if you put this level of zoning in Street Fighter 4, it would be overpowered, like ridiculously overpowered. But if your zoning isn't super strong in this game, it just falls apart because that's Street Fighter 5. It's so hard to zone in this game. So I think if Luke didn't have this, like his zoning would be close to worthless, because even then, even with zoning being this good, I'm still seeing a lot of people playing Luke much more up in your face and not even doing his zoning at all. There are some people doing both, but some people are just like, nah, his up close stuff is really where he's got the most juice at, and so that's what I'm going to do.
Right on. Yeah, I don't think it's super overpowered. It's fun, which actually I'm pretty excited to get into our next point here. And the way I set that up, this is probably a good point for an ad too. Is how fun and satisfying is Luke to play? And Steven, I'll ask you this.
I'm having fun with this character. I feel like he has a lot to learn, but I also don't feel like he's the most technical or anything like that. I do find myself playing this character and forgetting that there are tools there that he has. Like I'm like, oh, I forgot. Like I need to use V skill right now, right? Like there's so much there that you have to kind of remind yourself, because it's he's a new character. You're still building the muscle memory and all that, right?
He's got a lot of gears too. Are you zoning? Are you trying to play
Yeah.
that mid-range footsie battle? Are you going all the way to the other side of the screen? There's a lot you could be doing. So.
Yes, exactly. And I am having fun with him right now. I do think that trying to figure out kind of how exactly to maneuver him and all of that is pretty satisfying, and his combos and things are fun to do, and they're unique, right? Like you have the flash knuckles where you have to charge them and stuff, and you hold the button down for a certain amount of time, like, and you can do that while you can't, like the cancel that's still blowing my mind is like crouching heavy punch into the medium flash knuckle, which is like a longer charge than you would expect to be able to do, right? In order to get the wall bounce. Like that works. It totally works. You wouldn't expect that to work, but it does. And that timing is different than the light punch one that you cancel for mediums and all that, right? But I think that it's satisfying. The juggles and stuff are cool. His playstyle and everything, honestly, I'm a fan of it. The one thing I'm probably not a fan of is just how the character looks. I don't really like his design very much, but I think they've
And
done
his jumping animation.
And his
It's the worst
jumping-
jumping animation in the whole game.
His jumping animation is atrocious, man. It is so bad. I was like, I can't. It just looks so weird. It's so janky. It's the embodiment of all of Sakura in this game, right? Like it's exactly what it is. Like it's horrible.
Man, shots
fired. Yep. Yeah, I'm going there, man.
Capcom wants to say white guys can't jump, but man, it's hard.
Yeah.
I just have to warn people first off that he is a very fun character once you learn his core stuff. When you first play him, you're like, what the hell is this? Because he's so different. He's such a big departure. And if you don't put in a good amount of time with him, he's not going to be that fun. And that's kind of where I got to after a certain point where I'm like, hey, I still have Rose to play. I'm playing him, but like I'm going to kind of go back to this other very technical character. So if you're getting frustrated with Luke, make sure you study CFN footage and do other things like that. But I think he's a fun character, not only to play, but to watch. But he does fall on the little bit of like kind of samey type of stuff after you've seen him, so many times. I don't think his moveset's like really diverse. I think he's got a handful of moves and it's all about how you apply them. So if you enjoy that, I think you'll enjoy watching Luke. But if you get a little frustrated by more, straightforward characters, like Luke might be a little bit of a not filling, the gap for you. So
Yeah, I've been watching. Like I remember seeing Nemo play him, like kind of testing him for the first time, taking him into ranked, and so I'm sure he played with the training for a little while. But he couldn't help but be laughing and having a wonderful time. Bouncing characters off of the walls into a DP that's very satisfying. The way Luke winds up and such is very satisfying in terms of when you land one of those heavy thwack hits, and then playing with that V skill or the V trigger is a lot of fun too. Like I said, when you get an anti-air and you see it and you're like, oh, here it comes, and you throw that EX and then the enhanced version, and we knew that this move was going to be fun to do when we saw the trailer like 3 months ago. With like everyone's like, pocket sand looks amazing, and it sure is. So yeah, he does seem to be a pretty fun character. I've been having a decent amount of fun with him. Not so much that I'm really considering making him my main, but I'll still continue to play around with him for a while. And I have been having fun just powering up the Popeye arms and then going into safe flash knuckle stuff to see if it just works. There's a lot of just throw it at the screen, and I think people are going to figure out how to deal with that after a while. But right now it's working, and man, sometimes you just catch them trying to jump back and stuff, and it sucks for them, but it's fun for me. So I've been having a good time with him too.
One of the things you're going to want to look out for right away with Luke, and to do right away, is raw heavy flame knuckle, flash knuckle. I'm seeing like Punko go and get into that range where he can do it, and it's like, okay, if you throw the normal one is -2, but if you throw the charged one, it's +2. And that split second of difference, getting people to just, shift and stuff like that. It reminds me of Abigail's V-Trigger 1, the punch one, where you could charge it up a little bit or you could charge it up not. And depending on what they did, you could blow them up hardcore for it. That's what Punko's doing a lot in neutral, and it is very, very effective. It is hard to deal with.
Match, he was just powering up Popeye arms and then getting in range to do Fierce Punch, canceling Fierce Punch into either charged or not charged version of Flash Knuckle, and getting so much mileage against, Super Diamond up to like Ultimate Grandmaster players. I started doing that, and I was beating one of our best players in Arizona here. I got matched up in a casual because I haven't had the balls to go in with ranked yet, but and doing just fine. He's a Grandmaster player, should be wiping the floor with me, but I mean, the newness of the character, he's going to get away with a lot of stuff because people don't know how to stop it. That said, that was very fun. Of just like, it very much felt like I could throw whatever I wanted at him, and it would work more often than it wouldn't. But it is very counterable. You just got to know what's up.
Yeah. You should be able to neutral jump it or other stuff, but the hitbox is really good. So if you're just slightly off on it, you're getting clipped, and you're eating some pain.
Eating the pain.
Eat the pain, John.
Nom, nom, nom. All right, guys. So how good does he seem overall when it comes to where he might end up on the tiers? We are a few days into it. Obviously, this is a hot take, but if you were to place him and predict where he's going to end up on the tier list, Steven, where would you put him?
That's a hard one. Honestly, I think he has tools to definitely be viable in tournament. I think it's going to be a matter of just kind of, again, people getting comfortable with him and figuring out just kind of how to really play him and spending the time to unlock that potential, right? I think he's definitely going to be solid. I don't know if he'll be high tier. I don't expect him to be high tier, but you're probably looking at maybe like mid to, like mid-high tier, something like that. I don't know. Like
top 15, top 20, top 10?
Probably top 20 to 25, something like that is probably where I'd put him, because I do think he's got some really good tools. Because again, it's like you look at everything that he's got, it's just a matter of how you use it, right? Like you have to know how to use it. And that's been the theme with the latest DLC characters, right? It's like, look, they've got a lot of really good tools, but if you don't really know how to use them, they fall flat, right? But it's like, he's got good damage. He's got, great whiff punishing. He's got solid V triggers. He's got that unique mechanic with V trigger where it refills, and that's going to force people to play differently. Like, I can see him being a real bastard in the tournament scene.
John, how about you?
I've got him. This is a polarizing character, so I want to be really careful with the statement, because I think he's going to end up either really high or fairly low on the tier list, not in the middle. His style is just too geared towards being really good or really bad. He's got the Fong disease that we've talked about before. And right now, I have him at the top 15 range and potentially up as far as top 10. But he's going to take a lot for people to unlock to get him there. It's not like he's, just this easy character to play. He's fairly darn hard, and it's like, okay, how do you get him there? But again, top 10, top 15, I still throw the caveat, he could be weak. But he has a tool for most situations, and again, when you have that tends to make you a pretty good character in this game.
Mm-hmm. I thought he would be good before he came out. When I first got my hands on him, I felt, and we talked about this a little bit, like he was lacking and predictable in certain ways that were going to be very exploitable. Here's the thing: he's got some really good fireball uppercut zoning, but you can't really get by on that alone in this game, specifically the way that Luke has it. It's like if he gets an uppercut, that's fine, but also he doesn't really want to rush you down all that much because he can get some play in your face and like take an advantageous moment. But if that doesn't go well for him, then he's minus and he's losing his turn pretty quickly. And it is Street Fighter V, and you're only minus if you're what. But I gotta say that that's not something that I think he can last on. At the same time, or I don't think he can win long term just resorting to zoning. At the same time, his neutral is pretty good, but at the same time, it feels somewhat predictable, and I bet in certain matches he's going to have a really hard time with that. So, but he can also hit very hard there. I'd say both of those things are like kind of medium high tier in and of themselves. The big question is, can he pair them together in such a way that they make each other that much sharper? They might, because of the options and because the opponent's just not going to be ready for all these different gears that he can go into. That might be the secret that takes him and puts him into higher tier. And with what I've been seeing with a lot of the pros, people are able to win with this character very, very quickly. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but the Italian player that likes to take care of new characters and try to get them into diamond as fast as possible, as I understand it, he did it with this character without losing. Now, I'm seeing a lot of players like the Japanese and then the Korean players and such, the pros, take this character and just start. It looks like they're messing people up in a way that I don't tend to see them do with other new characters. I feel like Luke is very alluring and very powerful even at an early state, and then I gotta wonder. Well, are people going to figure him out and he'll become less effective, or is it going to be the opposite, where as people figure out how to basically balance his, as I would say, two main gears, that actually makes him super scary. I think that he might actually be I'm going to say top 15 character. And with the potential of top 10, I guess I'm more on the side of where John's at right now.
We agreed a bunch just a little ways back. What the hell is wrong with you, John? We're not supposed to agree on this show.
Happy birthday, John.
All right. And then finally, is Luke a good DLC addition to the game? Another way of saying that is he a reason or a significant contributing factor to why someone would want to buy Street Fighter V? I'll turn that to John.
It's the big thing about him is I think he actually offers a solid preview of the gameplay we're going to see in Street Fighter 6, and for that, his importance to the franchise going forward, I think he's a good buy. Like he's a character that if like you're really into Street Fighter, I don't see how you don't have this character, because he's kind of like, he's not like an Alex where it's like maybe I can take him or leave him, or some of the other characters that have come out. He's like, I think he's going to be very important not only to this game but the future of Street Fighter, and it's like, yeah, this is a character, and I also you and I just said he's probably top 10, top 15 right now in our heads. The community likes strong DLC characters, and I think Luke fits that category. It's like, why would you not get this character? So I feel like he's a pretty strong addition to the game. I'm very happy with him overall, despite some of the warts he has maybe on his face or whatever, or his hair. I'm not sure exactly, but because I actually like his design. I don't love it, but I like it because MMA has been missing from Street Fighter for forever, and MMA is like super popular. So it's like, it's nice to have an MMA looking fighter in the game. So there it is.
How about you, Steven?
I think it depends on what we're looking at here. So like if you're a serious Street Fighter V player, I don't see a scenario where you don't have this character. Just mainly, honestly, the main selling point for him is just the glimpse at Street Fighter 6, right? Like as a pro or a serious player, you would want to get a taste of what the next game is going to be like. You definitely want to spend some time with Luke. And I think that, as we said before, like if you're willing to spend some time with him and learn and kind of get familiar with how he plays and get comfortable, you have a worthwhile DLC character. From a casual standpoint, I think this character's probably not really worth it. For me, I mean, thinking about where you're at this late in the game, right? Like, I don't see this character as like, oh, I need to buy Street Fighter V Champion Edition now because Luke's there. Like, as a casual, purchaser, right? A casual consumer. And then you go back to his design, it's not all that flashy or anything. He looks very, in my opinion, he's really generic looking. You've got a play style that's kind of weird to learn up front, and you're going to probably try to play him and, fall on your ass a bunch because you're just like, I don't know, I don't understand what this character's doing. I feel like he's definitely more catered to a serious player, and if you're a casual fan, it's like, if you're looking at buying that character, it's kind of like, just wait for Street Fighter 6, man. You don't really have too much. There's not that much drawing you in as a casual consumer.
I see what you're saying there, especially with the visual design has not been my favorite thing either, but it's also not an egregious sin, especially not for me. But I do think that he's ultimately he's a big win for Capcom. I think that he's an enticing character, whether I'm a competitive or a casual. I would say I would want to test him out because he looks fun to play, and indeed he is. I do think that you can get. You guys have both mentioned that he is not easy to play like right out of the gate in some capacity, and I agree with you. There was a moment, I guess a few moments, where I was like, I don't know what I want to do with this character, what I'm supposed to do. I watched that one Nemo footage though, where he basically boiled everything down to, I'm just going to use Fierce Punch when I'm in range into that Flash Knuckle because it's safe, and then a lot of the times it's going to hit anyway. And just having that and then forcing my opponents to dance around that opened up so many other parts of the gameplay. I was able to win pretty quickly with him in matches that, like I said, I should not be winning with him. And I've seen a lot of players have a lot of quick success with him. Now, these are players that know how to play the game already, and so maybe they're able to unlock things that a casual player might not be able to. But I do think that he's not a free win by any means, but I think he's fun to play, and I think he can get some early wins pretty quickly. So I think he's very, very good, save for one major fail that Capcom, that I have to give credit where it's due, and I also have to call out failures where I see them. But that's actually the next thing I want to talk about. So you're going to have to wait for the next video to talk about that.
Oh.